Salut, audience. How y'all doing? Before I get into the question today, I wanted to just mention a couple things. Number one, I wanted to send my sincerest apologies to our guest of the day. Her name is Chanel, and it was a very great conversation I had with her. But I called her OT like twice, even though I literally looked at her bio and everything right before the interview. So again, Chanel, I am so sorry. I apologize. That is perhaps the biggest disrespect I've ever given to my guests, and I sincerely apologize for that. So if you notice some lack of smoothness in this clip, especially at the beginning, that is why I try to cut off the most I can, but I did keep a good amount in there. Even you will notice my mistake there, but just again, I'm sorry. Lastly, before I get into the question, you will also notice that the clip sort of ended abruptly at the end, and that's my best way of cutting out the conversation I had with her and my husband, because as I was ending my session with Chanel, my husband Jason learned that she was from Howard and jumped up, and we started talking. Her and my husband and Chanel had a great time, and I joined them. And it was just three Black beautiful people having a good time. And as amazing as the conversation is, it doesn't necessarily pertain to what we do here in Healthcare Boulevard right now. And I don't believe it will add any value to the listeners. So I cut that out. And since he sort of went right into it, that's why. Anywho, let's get into the question. Question of the day. Which of the following states or district has the highest mean salary for speech and language pathologists? Is it A, California, B, Connecticut, C, New Jersey, or D, District of Columbia? The answer will be at the end. Hey y'all, I hope you're well. Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Boulevard. This is a podcast where we shine more light on healthcare, and our goal here is to provide more options to people looking to choose healthcare as a career path, regardless of their background. My name is Sena Kakpomo, and I am your host and creator here. I thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your support. Remember, you can tune in on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
I am a speech pathologist. I have been working for the past 6.5 years. I work in several settings, including home health, private practice, and also the general school system. I primarily serve children of underserved communities, both Black and Hispanic students primarily, just because that's how the demographics are in my area. In the geriatrics, I serve individuals ranging, I'd say, from ages 50 to 94. I currently have a 94-year-old patient as well. Wow. And with those patients, we work on cognitive communication disorders related to Alzheimer's and other types of dementias, TBI, and different neurological related injuries. I also see patients through my own LLC through private practice. And that allows me to see children on an individual basis, where in the schools, I see them in groups of 3 to 4.
Okay. So you're seeing, and I apologize, I introduced you as an OT. I'm having interviews back to back, so I'm like, oh no. So my apologies for that. Yeah, sure. But you are seeing people from all, essentially from very early to very late. How did you get it to work with this demographic?
As a speech, because I think you said OT one more time.
I know. It's I don't know what's happening.
No worries. Occupational therapists and physical therapists, as well as speech, we're all kind of a part of a treatment team, especially in home health and rehab. So it is common that people will mistake the different titles, but it's totally okay because we're all kind of like one in that rehab center.
Right. I'm going to blame it on the fact that it's not even 8 o'clock on my side.
I know you are living in the past over there, and it's 10:30 here, so I totally understand. I'm not a morning person.
What happened again?
No worries. So I started my my professional journey in the schools, typically graduates will either work in the schools or a medical setting. Medical settings are a little bit more stringent as far as letting beginner speech pathologists into the field, as they require that you have significant experience, especially because they treat, along with cognitive difficulties, they treat swallowing disorders, which a lot of people aren't aware of. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a patient's house and they say, oh, he doesn't need speech, he knows how to talk. But there's a much broader scope of what speech pathologists do, which includes treating swallowing, treating comprehension and listening, treating memory and attention and focus, things like that. So I started in the schools, and about 4 years after working in the schools, I decided to do some PRN work through a home health agency. That's the best way for speech pathologists to get some experience. It's part-time and you're not really tied to a contract or obligations. So that kind of allowed me to tunnel my way in and start working with adults. I've been doing that for about 2 years. And so, very distinct settings, but definitely our skills are very essential for both of those areas in serving this population.
Okay. How did you decide to become a speech therapist?
So my story is interesting. I actually have a bachelor's degree in English with a minor in Spanish. And it was during my sophomore year at Howard University that I was assigned as a work study student to the Department of Communication and Sciences and Disorders. That's the department that had at the time an undergraduate program for speech pathology and a graduate program. I knew I didn't want to teach with that English degree. I thought about technical writing, but after working in the department, getting to know the chair of the department and the faculty, and also kind of learning that it engaged the scope of communication, I thought, with this field, I could work with different age groups, I can work in different settings, and I can also engage my interest in language. So after graduating with my bachelor's degree, I enrolled in the master's program as a 3-year student. Typically, if you have a bachelor undergraduate degree in communication sciences, the master's program is only 2 years. If you come into the master's program with a degree in another field, the program is 3 years. And that's only because that first year is just filled with prerequisites, taking anatomy and physiology, audiology and speech sciences, all the basics that you need before going to those advanced master's level courses. I am so grateful that I worked in the department, because like a lot of people, I had no idea what a speech language pathologist was or did. Speech therapist is the term that is more commonly known around when you mention speech therapy. However, the term speech pathologist kind of encompasses everything we do, working with language disorders, speaking disorders, swallowing disorders, cognitive disorders. And so definitely my work in the department as a student introduced me to the field and helped me to get into the program and obtain my master's to become a clinician.
Awesome. As far as speech and language pathologist, can you be just a speech pathologist and can you be just a language pathologist, or is it usually a combination? Because that's a term that I'm not really familiar with, to be honest.
Yes, that's a very good question. I was actually reading about the history of our field, and it's relatively new. It was started in the 1920s, and it really took off during World War II, when people were coming back from the war with brain injuries, and so they had speaking difficulties. It wasn't until the 50s and the 60s that speech language was added to that piece, because it was found that we can not only treat people who can't speak clearly, but also people who can't get words out at all or understand. So as a speech language pathologist, especially if you're working in the schools, I will say that, especially with the middle school level that I work with, you will be treating language more so than you're treating speech. Whereas at the elementary and preschool level, you will treat more of speech. Speech is just being able to say certain sounds. Everyone may be familiar with Bugs Bunny, who says wabbit instead of rabbit with an R. That's just an example of the sound difficulties that we would treat. But definitely, I find that more people are in need of language treatment than speech, but we are certified to do both.
To do both. Okay. And as far as going into the program, are you required to do like clinical hours or entrance exams? What some of the nitty-gritty in most speech and language pathology programs?
Yes. So following the first year of graduate school, after completing prerequisites, not only are we completing 15 credits per semester, but we're also placed at clinical externships around the city. In this case, I was placed, and it changed every semester. Each semester, I would either be placed at a school, at a nursing home, at a hospital in the area, and would directly serve under the supervision of a licensed speech pathologist, different clients. So definitely a challenge being in class from maybe 5 o'clock to 9 p.m. in the evenings, but using the bulk of that earlier day to actually practice at externship, giving treatment and educating people on communication sciences.
Thank you for that. And what are some of your favorite part about your profession?
I love kids, and it's very funny because speech pathologists are usually one or the other. You either work with kids or you work with adults. I know speech pathologists who will never work with kids, and I know speech pathologists who will never work with adults, but I really love children. They're just so, I think it reminds me of how we all used to be as young children, discovering new things, being happy about something so small, like, I don't know, getting a sticker. So I do really enjoy the children,
right?
What they can in life.
Yeah.
I do also enjoy meeting the older patients and being able to converse with them like adults. I don't have to deal with behavior management as much with adults, since they're willing to participate and they're a little bit more understanding of the process. So those are, I would say, the two things that I love the most about my job.
I must say out here now, I appreciate folks like you who really enjoy working with kids. I found that I don't.
Yeah.
It's a special skill. It really is. Y'all are God sent so that folks like me don't have to, do it, so to speak. Because I was like, one thing I won't do likely is pediatric. Like, it's just like they're beautiful, but working with them it presents you gotta have a different set of skills on top of the skills you have as a professional, and I'm just like,
patience is a big one.
It is.
Trust me, I'm challenged a lot, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love children. I do.
No, y'all are godsend, and I personally thank you for your service. Yes. Picking up to that, what are some challenges you faced?
The speech pathology field, like the medical field, like being a physician assistant, we all have challenges with behavior management can be one. I do serve with the children. Some of them have autism or severe medical conditions. So one of the challenges is just learning behavior management. That's something that's not really addressed at the graduate level. So if you're going into the field of speech pathology to work with kids, please know that behavior management is something that should be addressed, just so that you have that taken care of before you can do your job. I just had no idea that I would have to get this done before I could actually do therapy and what I was what I was here for. Another challenge in the field, like with most medical fields, is paperwork. There's always that constant balance between your workload, your caseload, what is it exactly you do, and everything that comes with it. I would say that direct therapy delivery is maybe 30% of my job, in the documentation, the paperwork, the meetings, the contacting parents and clients. it can be a lot. So that's a challenge, but it can be managed with just isolating certain days and times so you can actually knock out that paperwork, prioritizing that you do work during even during the sessions. I'm getting a lot better with documenting during my sessions, which um, a lot of therapists do. I'm trying to balance doing documentation while giving that face-to-face bedside manner, but definitely doing documentation during the sessions is key.
Yeah.
Some challenges too with working in the field, I would say burnout, which is also common with most medical professions. There is maybe 3,000 speech pathologists that graduate every year. And so not enough to cover all the openings in the country. There's a severe need for us, but while there aren't many speech pathologists to serve in every setting, a lot of the times we deal with huge caseloads, numbers of kids and adults that need to be served, but it's difficult serving them adequately with just the number and one speech pathologist responsible for all of those children. So those are just some challenges to direct service delivery in the field itself.
So how many patients are you seeing on a regular shift, 8-hour shift, so to speak?
In the schools, I would say I see about no more than 10 to 12 students a day, which sounds small, but most of those students are seen weekly or twice a week. So we also have to factor in the frequency with which they're seen throughout the school day. That happens in addition to IEP meetings, which are individualized educational program meetings. We meet with the parents of each kid every year to go over progress, to assess whether goals should be changed or even if the kid should be dismissed if they've achieved all their goals. That may not happen every day, but there's at least one meeting a week that happens. In between the therapy sessions and the meetings, I'm emailing teachers, I'm collaborating with administration, I'm sending materials home to parents so they can facilitate that growth at home. That goes on from about 7:50 to 3:20. Off from the school, I'm going up to Potomac, Rockville, serve a lot of home health patients in Maryland. And I see patients in their homes from about 4 to 5:30 p.m. or so. That typically is individually. And I would say my workday ends maybe at 6:30 after doing documentation and planning for the next day. If I'm lucky, it's probably really 8 o'clock, but I'm doing really better with managing my time and trying to fit all of that work into decent hours so that I have time for myself, of course.
And how many years total was your education then?
Total years of education. So bachelor's degree, 4 years with my English background. Again, my master's degree program was 3 years since I had an English degree which wasn't associated with the field. So in total, my educational journey was 7 years, but for people who want to major in speech pathology in undergraduate, their undergraduate career, their education requirements would be 6 years instead of 7. So for me, it was 7. Traditional students, it's 6.
Okay. And as this is a common thing happening across different fields in healthcare. And right now it's a master's degree requirement for speech and language pathologists. Do y'all have a doctorate degree option?
We do. It's not required for clinical practice. However, if you're interested in teaching at the university level, if you're interested in leadership positions like being a clinical director or developing curriculum for educational school systems, a PhD or even an EDD, an educational doctorate degree, is often in our field as well.
Okay. And before I head into the next question, I just want to address you did mention that you have your own LLC. How was that process for you as a professional getting to LLC and then finding clients for that?
Yes. So I began practicing in 2015. It was in 2017 that I decided, hey, I want to maybe see students independently. which is a little bit more difficult in the school system.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with researching my state's business filing rules. The first thing I had to do was create a name because you can't apply for a business without a name. That, of course, with fees and completing paperwork was the easiest part. The next step was obtaining clients, and I did that through insurance. Initially, I applied for Blue Cross Blue Shield here, and something people should know about insurance if they're thinking about wanting to apply is it can take 6 to 9 months. So I didn't know that. But after about 9 months of submitting the paperwork, I was approved as an insurance provider. However, one of the big pros of that is patients with that insurance can go on their site and find you as an eligible provider. So it was great that most of my referrals came from that source.
Okay.
However, the reimbursement rates with some companies may not be commensurate with some of the services you're providing. So I learned quickly that private pay, which is patients paying without insurance, was more ideal in that you can set your own rate. And also you can avoid all the paperwork that comes with insurance since you already have that other paperwork with just documenting your client's progress. So insurance helped me to obtain clients. I also have a website. I printed flyers. I offered free screenings, which is the first step to determining if there's even a problem or something that you need to further evaluate. And I also reached out to my colleagues. You know, I have colleagues in education, colleagues in medicine. And so that was very helpful in obtaining a client base. Word of mouth is also great. Once you have a parent whose child graduates speech, which is the best feeling in the world, they will share in these mommy groups online, these forums, and they will spread the word. And that's also been the best, hearing from a parent whose child has actually graduated and actually succeeded to help to bring more patients.
And now I'm curious, what's the name of your LLC?
Yes, my LLC is Davis Speech and Language Services. Very simple. I actually see patients in the home, so I don't have a brick and mortar location. And that also seems to be ideal for parents, for me to come directly to them. So that's my business, Davis Speech and Language Services. And right now I primarily serve the pediatrics population, my favorite.
Awesome. That's amazing. Now that we know everything that you do to some degree, I'm going to ask the daunting question of how is work-life balance?
You know, in these, it's when we're going into year 3 of COVID. Working from home made work-life balance a lot easier when the schools were closed. However, they're open now, and I'm tied to a building, but that's okay because I actually think that in-person services are best for the students if proper precautions can be taken to keep everyone safe. I am making an effort to wake up a little bit early. I'm not a morning person. You know, it's 10:55 here and you're talking about how early it is there. I feel like it's 7:55 here. I feel like I'm on West Coast time, so I haven't been a morning person. But I find that waking up early and getting some work done before the day starts has really helped. I'm making an effort to use Sundays as planning to get some of that done and out the way, and sticking to-do lists. If I don't write it down and make a plan, I find myself operating on autopilot, which it just doesn't. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge. It is a challenge that I'm constantly trying to balance and figure out what works for me as far as making it work and not letting work take over my whole life. But meditation has been so helpful. I've finally gotten to the practice of just 5 minutes a day and try to walk, even though it's so cold here, but definitely taking time outside of work because it's so easy to get caught up in your job. And I love my field, but I know that life is to work, but also to live. So definitely constantly working on balancing work life with all those jobs too.
Yeah, that's a skill on its own, right? Especially since you keep yourself super busy. that can be a lot, but you're making it happen, and I really am in awe of all of what you're doing. My next question was, how do you handle stress? Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? We know you go for walks.
Yes.
We know you go for walks and meditate.
Yes, I go for walks. Yes, I meditate. I spend time in nature. I love going to concerts, which has been really hard to with his um, limiting venues and performances. But I love music and I love comedy. I love to laugh, and laughing, music, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks since I'm always moving, which I'm just so grateful that I don't have to sit down and read. But self-help audiobooks, especially with making habits and just becoming more mindful. I'm very, very into mindfulness and just the Zen lifestyle, which is essential for stress management. So lots of physical activity, meditation, and music are just my top coping mechanisms for
I love it.
burnout.
Do you play any instruments?
I wish I did, and I have very long fingers. Everyone always says I should have played the piano, but I sang in high school. I don't really sing in a group now, but I still sing. I sing a lot, and I write activities.
That's what's up. And what are some growth or leadership opportunities in as a speech and language pathologist?
So I will say at the master's level, the most popular job position would be direct clinical service delivery. Some colleagues of mine have been able to teach at the university level with a master's degree, which I'm actually interested in addition to everything else I'm doing.
Right.
But again, an advanced degree, his PhD or EDD, is more likely to facilitate some of those higher up positions, which include being a clinical supervisor or a rehab clinical director. There are speech pathologists in my school district who kind of act as a liaison to troubleshoot conflicts or to support us when we're having issues at the school level. Some of the position titles differ, but in my county, they're called support SLPs. Other leadership positions include mentoring new speech pathologists, being a chair of academic departments, or also being a consultant for different educational institutions as well.
And what do you do to keep your education up to date?
CEUs. Thankfully, my national organization, which is the American Speech Language and Hearing Association, known by the acronym of ASHA, they require that we obtain 30 CEUs every three years. So we're held to that obligation, as well as state licensure obligations. The state of Maryland also requires 30 credits after every 2 years. So I keep abreast of different continuing ed opportunities. There are tons of online portals that offer pre-recorded CEUs. I've also participated in some workshops, including Prompt. Prompt is a program that teaches evidence-based practices for using tactile cues to help kids produce certain sounds. I've also participated in the Introduction to Floor Time. That's kind of a theoretical framework for building on making rapport with children and kind of making them your best friend before you make progress with language, as that's shown as being very essential to student progress. Definitely attending our annual conferences. We had our conference in Washington, D.C. this year in November, which was great. I didn't have to pay for a hotel. That's held every year. You're able to get CEUs there. It's in New Orleans next year, which is going to be very exciting. Podcasts are also great, by the way, and it's so great that you're into podcasts, as there have been a lot of speech pathology related podcasts that also offer great information.
What would you advise to those who want to become a speech and language pathologist?
Definitely, grades are very important. Grades are very important because a lot of those graduate programs accept maybe 19 to 23 or 24 students per year and have thousands of applicants, the odds are very, very slim. So definitely making sure to distinguish yourself with good grades and a high GPA. Your GRE scores, try to do really well on those, though I know with COVID, a lot of weight has been decreased by some programs as far as how significant they are. Do as well as on those as possible as well. Personal statement is key. I definitely know, in addition to my grades, letting the admission board know who I was outside of academics and outside of grades and my resume was key. They want people who are smart, but they also want people with character who can represent the school name adequately. So definitely getting people to look over your personal statement and sharing who you are outside of your resume. Reach out to people in the field. LinkedIn is a great source. Facebook is a great source. Speech pathologists in the field are very kind and open to answering questions. Again, there's a severe shortage in the field, so we want people to reach out with questions or interest in being speech pathologists. So don't be afraid to send that email or send that message, and even seek out a mentor. Instagram has been great. A lot of my colleagues have speech-related Instagram accounts. I've actually had a few people reach out to me through my Instagram, and I've helped them with navigating the application process and navigating their first years in the career as well. So that would be my best encouragement for future speech pathologists. Don't be afraid if you don't have a science background. I didn't either. The anatomy and physiology, I'll say, is from the respiratory system up, so you're not really getting the whole anatomy and physiology, but don't be afraid of the science. It is doable. It is doable.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been so informative. We really had a lot of information here, and I appreciate learning all that you're doing with your LLC and working with kids. Again, you are a godsend for that. And as well as, which actually, let me go back a little bit. I was going to end it, but what are some challenges specifically working with adults with like Alzheimer's and so forth?
Yeah, challenges include just one of the big requirements for treating Alzheimer's and other cognitive disorders is some patients have hearing difficulties. You know, there are definitely, that's something that affects their prognosis. Visual deficits as well. It's best if you know your loved one has Alzheimer's or a related disorder to do those cognitive activities early. I read an article that said doing crossword puzzles, word finding activities, you'll kind of feel like you're in school again, but keeping the brain active can kind of slow down disorders like Alzheimer's, which can't be cured, unfortunately. So a lot of treatment is geared towards slowing down the process of the disease.
Right.
Very, very, very key in keeping that brain working with those academic exercises that will keep the brain going. It is challenging because at some points, the disease gets so severe that the most treatment you can give involves just caregiver education and what can be done to kind of enhance the quality of life. Very, very challenging disorder, especially with awareness as well. Some people have never heard of Alzheimer's or aphasia before their loved one is diagnosed. So just constantly educating yourself and doing your best to keep your loved ones cognitively active, because that's your brain doing exercises is the best in kind of shortening or decreasing the chance that you would be susceptible to those kind of difficulties.
Thank you again. Have a beautiful weekend and a less stressful week. And have a nice time with your kids.
Yes, and stay safe. You know, we're still in this weird time, but stay safe and engage in self-care yourself. I know in your position as a physician assistant, you're just as just dealing with the same similar things, if not more things than me. So take care of yourself as well.
We're all in this together, really, as healthcare profession. Like you said, it's just I can't imagine there is a healthcare profession out there that's where they have more than they need, or even enough of the personnel they need. So essentially, all of our fields are under
underserved or underrepresented, when we need more people. And that means those of us who are lucky enough to be practicing have more on our plates. But I'm like you. I try to look at the I'm like, especially since I'm a very new provider, I'm still, like you said, trying to learn the kicks of, okay, I want to look at the patient, but I also want to not forget my notes. So when you were saying that, I was like, oh my gosh, the struggle is so real. Yeah. The struggle is so real, but we are getting better every day. So and like you said, we do the best to just get away from it, and so that we can do the best for our patient when we are with them.
Voila, I am back to give you the answer, and the answer is D, District of Columbia. District of Columbia is, well, it's not a state, but it is the district that has the highest mean salary for speech and language pathologists, and that number is 101,920 as a mean salary. Connecticut is second for 100,590. New Jersey is third for 100,330. New York for $98,010, and California for $95,570. That's unnecessary detail, but I didn't want to give you that. Those are essentially the top, 4 or 5 states. That's it. Ciao. That's it. Cheers. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you. Please subscribe, follow, like, comment, and share. And stay blessed. Bye.